Good evening. My name's Richard. This is Over and Over Again. And we've got two shows for you tonight, two for the price of one. First of all, coming up very, very shortly, we've got the FA Cup third round draw live on the channel. This is going to be exciting, isn't it? Of course, it's where all the Premier League clubs come in as well. We're also going to keep an eye out for the women's third round draw as well. Of course, we was at the Newcastle against Barnsley game yesterday, which Newcastle got through. So we're going to look out for that draw as well. But obviously, it's mostly about this third round for the men, of course, when all the big guns come in. Who are Arsenal going to get in this competition? It's always an exciting time, isn't it? Of course, you know, we are the record holders of this competition. 14 times we have won the FA Cup. So see if we can add to that this season. Last 2 years been very disappointing, hasn't it? We've gone out very early in the third round last year to Nottingham Forest, of course, and the fourth round the year before against Southampton. So, you know, we do another decent run in the competition, aren't we? So let's see what we get in the third round. Obviously, a home draw would be preferable. I fancy our chances against pretty much anybody at home. Away from home, it can be a little bit more tricky, can't it? But we'll see what it brings us to today. The draw will be coming up very, very shortly. So I say, and after the draw, we are going to move into the World Cup memories. We're up to 1986, Mexico, of course, was famous World Cup. We know what happened there, don't we? But there's lots of more great stuff from that World Cup as well that we need to go through. Daniel will be joining us as well. He's just running a little bit late at this moment, but he will be with us certainly in time for the World Cup memories coming up a little bit later after this FA Cup draw, which is going to be pretty exciting, isn't it? Let's see. It's always I can remember years ago when I was younger, the FA Cup third round draw. It used to be on the radio, didn't it? And it was always an exciting time, wasn't it? You'd sit there waiting for the draw, listening around the radio to see who you'd get. It's kind of a little bit more of a they've turned it a little bit more Hollywood these days, haven't they, with a draw on the TV and stuff like that. But the excitement's still the same, isn't it? You know, the third round is the big one, isn't it? Really. That's the one that everybody wants to watch because there's so many clubs in it. And I say all the little minnows, if you like, are hoping to get a big Premier League team, aren't they? So it's an exciting occasion in the football calendar. And I'm sure this one's going to be just as exciting as well. We're going to be starting in a minute. Of course, with all draws these days, that they have a lot of waffle, don't they, at the beginning for ages and ages before they actually get going with a draw. It's John Aldridge at the moment, of course, scored a famous cup final goal, didn't he, at Wembley? So he is currently, I don't know if he's actually doing the draw. He might be one of the guys doing the draw. Mark Wright is in the studio as well. And joining us now in our studio is, of course, Daniel. How are you, mate? You all right?
Evening, Richard. How are you? All good?
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to the FA Cup draw, actually. It's always been such an important part of the season, hasn't it, the FA Cup third round draw?
Yeah. I mean, FA Cup was... what you're looking at about 30 odd years ago, it was the highlight of the football season, cup final day. But obviously now it's I mean, both of our teams are obviously I've got great tradition in that. Obviously yourselves in like the 70s, Newcastle in the 50s under the great Jackie Milburn and sort of Joe Harvey and all that. But now obviously I think it seems to have lost that luster now.
Yeah, it does. And I think, again, it probably comes down to, I mean, we spoke about it before, about overkill, really. The more football that's on telly, the more that they got other stuff on, the less you get excited about it now because it's on all the time, isn't it? And maybe it hasn't helped the FA Cup where it seems as though Europe's more important and other stuff's taken over priority. But I think from fans' perspective, I don't think there's anything better than the FA Cup, is there? You know, the excitement that can bring.
Absolutely
the good run and yeah, it's fantastic competition, and you know, obviously we've won it the most times, so maybe I enjoy it maybe more because we've got such a great. But you know, we've played actually. Arsenal and Newcastle have met in 3 FA Cup finals, haven't we, in history? So, you know, maybe it's time for another one. Maybe perhaps this year. You never know.
1998, obviously, when you won the double, I remember that. And well, we didn't turn up that day. I'm not going to sit here and say this happened. We didn't turn up that day.
I mean, we were obviously we had a very, very good side then anyway, and I think regardless of how well you may have played, I still fancy we would have won that game with the team that we had. The way we were.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you got there the following season as well, didn't you? Against Man United.
Again, didn't turn up.
But then they were a very good side as well, weren't they? To be fair, as well.
Well, that was sort of leg. Was it? I did all but sewn up the league, but that was like second leg of the treble, wasn't it? Before that final against Bayern Munich.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, funnily enough, we obviously lost to Man United in the semi-final of the FA Cup that year. Dennis Bergkamp missed that penalty. So had we won that game, we would have played Newcastle in final 2 years running, which would have, I don't think that's ever happened before, has it, in this FA Cup history? The same two teams in a final 2 years running. That would have been unusual. But obviously, Bergkamp missed and we lost, and that was that. So
no, I can't. I mean, obviously, like yourself, I always like to go through the history books. I can't think of a final where the same two teams have met in a cup final. I remember season 92-3 where Sheffield Wednesday and Arsenal met in the League Cup and the FA Cup final.
FA Cup, yeah, that's right, yeah. The two cup finals, yeah, but I mean, that happened the last season as well, wasn't it? Chelsea and Liverpool, they were
of course, yeah, that's another one.
In both the finals, but yeah, I don't think there's ever been two consecutive FA Cup finals with the same two teams in it. So maybe that's a bit of history that might happen at some point. You know, hopefully not this year because it'll mean Chelsea and Liverpool there. We don't want to see them back there again.
I want them. I want them to be going through a bit of an audit of their books, see where all their money's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see what happens there. We've got Gary in the chat. How you doing, my friend? Hope you're doing well. He's a Tottenham fan actually, so I'm sure he'll be looking for a nice easy draw for them in the cup. Otherwise, they'll get knocked out if they play anyone decent, won't they? So,
well, I suppose it goes for anybody. If you draw somebody decent early doors.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, what you want is in the third round is you want to be at home to maybe a championship team, don't you, or a League One team, so you can maybe rest a few players. And you should still be able to get through, playing at home. So that's really what you want, isn't it? But the draw doesn't work like that, Man City away is going to come out, isn't it? That tends to be how it works. We don't want Man City away, do we? Nobody does really, I don't suppose. Gary says, it indeed. But we'll see. It might be Arsenal, Tottenham, of course, did meet in the third round. Was it 2014? I think the year we won it. I'm sure we played Tottenham in the third round at the Emirates, and we got through.
Was Harry in charge? Was Harry in charge of Tottenham then?
I think he might have been actually. He's been in charge of Tottenham a couple of times, hasn't he? He may well have been. But yeah, I remember that game. And Theo Walcott got a bad injury that game. He was out for the rest of the season and missed the cup final. But we won 2-0. And yeah, we've bet Tottenham a few times in the FA Cup. Actually, it's usually later on in a competition, a semi-final a couple of times, and a couple of famous semi-finals against Tottenham.
Yeah.
So,
I've got that on. I've got a Gaza DVD there, and obviously that free kick.
Yeah,
obviously, yeah.
Oh, that was. I mean, I was at that game, and funny enough, I've said this story before. We were actually got tickets. We didn't realise until we picked them up on the day. They were actually in the Tottenham end, and we were sitting in the Tottenham end when Gaza scored that free kick. So that kind of that wasn't a great memory. I mean, it was a great goal. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, being in a Tottenham end when that went in wasn't much fun.
No, exactly.
Don't want that to happen again. But I mean, what annoys me about the draw now is they just waffle on for ages. Just get on with the draw. That's so anybody wants to know is who's playing who. They don't care what anybody thinks about it because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
All the teams out. So
get your hand in, draw them.
Draw the balls out and let's get going. Because they do this with the Champions League draw. They do everything, don't they? Let's just get on with it and see who's playing who. That's what we're here for. Do you remember it in the old days when you used to listen to it on the radio? The third round. Yeah. I mean, I must admit, when I've been coming, there's a thing about radio. Listen to radio commentary. It's the commentators painting a picture, and it sort of gets even more sort of exciting. Yeah. I think the commentator paints the best possible picture for you, whereas the picture on the screen isn't going to look the same way. But to be honest, I've been coming when I've been coming home from work. I've just been listening to the football. Usually, I've got music on, but I haven't took any CDs or out with this or linked me Spotify up. It's just I'm listening to the last little bits of
of whatever games on the World Cups. But
I must admit though, when I was growing up, like you said, you used to listen to it all on the radio, so you had to picture it from what they were telling you. And what I used to find was brilliant was when you actually got to see maybe the goals later on, how close they were to how you'd imagined them from how it had been described on the radio. It's like what them commentators were, doesn't it, really? Because often how you imagine the goal from how they told you was actually pretty much how it was when you saw it. It was amazing. I think we might be getting started actually, Stu. It looks like it's Mark Wright and Karen Barsley are doing the draw.
She's been busy today. She's come from ITV to BBC. She's been a busy lass today. That's not Karen. That was Karen Carney.
That was Karen Carney. This is the goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper, that's right.
Yeah. So it looks like Mark Wright's pulling out the home teams, and she'll be pulling out the away teams. So let's hope Mark Wright pulls Arsenal out anyway, because we're going to be at home. Really, would be ideal. But anyway, we'll see what happens. You can never tell what's going to happen in the draw, can you? So I do think it's one of the highlights of the season, the FA Cup third round draw.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, here we go.
Are we getting on with it now? Come on, stop talking and get on with it. Put the balls in that little box and let's get going. Come on. We want to see who we're getting. I think last year, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, Arsenal were the last ball out, I think, in the whole draw. So we had to wait till right at the end. So hopefully we'll be out of it sooner this time. But they need to drag it on, don't they, I suppose?
Yeah.
But anyway. Come on, Mark, right? Stick the balls in and let's get going. There's a lot of games to get through, you know. There's like 64 teams or something. I think in the
Mark Wright, England sweeper.
Yeah, he was a decent player, wasn't he, Mark Wright? Of course, he was. Yeah. He was sort of one of the stars of the next World Cup that we'll be looking at, 1990, wasn't he?
Oh yes.
But did he play in '86? Actually, I'm not sure. I think he.
No, he didn't play in '86 because obviously when he got picked, he was with Southampton, wasn't he? When he got picked.
That's right.
Before he went to Liverpool.
Yeah, it was. So the numbers in Arsenal number 2. Can't see who Newcastle are yet.
We're number 27 because I got a I got a message from one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in, Northwest Mags, and they were saying we're number 27.
Oh, okay, 27, right, okay. So we don't really want 2 against 20. Mind you, actually, Arsenal and Newcastle played in the third round. Was it 2 or 3 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
At the Emirates.
Yes, it was. And also, I remember that under Sir Bobby, when it got taken, the replay, Laurent Robert scored.
He did. That was a great goal. I remember that game. Yeah. That's right. And then in the replay was when Robert Pires got a bad injury, actually. Well, they're putting the balls in now. This is a good bit now. We're coming up to the excitement here. The balls have gone in. Let's get them out now. Come on, let's get this going. Let's see who's playing who. This is the exciting part. One of the highlights of the football calendar, the FA Cup third round draw. We are going to see who's getting who. So actually, Karen Barsley's gone in first. So she's doing the home team. Oh, no, she's not. She just twisted them around. Mark Wright goes in. The first ball out. Who's it going to be? Number 30. Who's number 30? I don't know. Preston North End. There you go.
All right.
Arsenal played them in the third round in 2013. I think 17 they're playing anyway. We were 17. Huddersfield Town. So Preston against Huddersfield, which is not much excitement there. 25's out. Middlesbrough at home. Championship Middlesbrough. Who have they got? Number 8. That'd be a Premier League team, will it? Brighton and Hove Albion.
Wow. Yeah. I've got the numbers.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? 61's at home. That's Chesterfield. That's already on the screen. So Chesterfield at home. This would be a bad away trip, would it, for somebody in the Premier League? Who they got?
Yeah.
41. I don't know who 41. Well, West Brom Albion. So there you go. Chesterfield against West Brom. That's not very exciting, is it? Who's next at home? 23. Man City. Oh, no one wants this one. Man City at home. Don't pull out 2, please. 12. That'll be a Premier. Chelsea. Wow.
Chelsea.
Man City, Chelsea. That's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, 20.
That's one of them out of the way anyway. 56 is next at home. That's Charlton or Stockport. And who are they playing against? Number 63. I don't know who 63 is. Walsall. Oh, well,
Walsall,
game, isn't it? Charlton or Stockport against Walsall. No one's bothered about that one. Uh, 57, I think, was it Boreham Wood? Ah, Boreham Wood.
Boreham,
Home.
Bristol Rovers or Boreham Wood.
47, Accrington Stanley. Boreham Wood against Accrington Stanley. Wow, that's an interesting game, actually. What's next? 39, Tottenham.
Ooh.
Tottenham at home. Oh, Tottenham at home. You watch it'll be 2. It'll be Arsenal. Oh, it's not. 52. Who's 52? Portsmouth.
Portsmouth.
Tottenham against Portsmouth. Wow, that'll be exciting, won't it? Tottenham against Portsmouth. 64 is next out at home. Derby County at home. I wouldn't mind Derby County. That'd be all right. 50. Who's 50? Barnsley. Derby against Barnsley. Well, there you go. That's a bit of a nothing game, isn't it? 11. That'll be Premier League team, will it? I know it's Cardiff
11
City.
is Cardiff City.
19. Who's 19? Leeds. Oh,
Leeds.
Cardiff against Leeds. That'll be tasty, won't it? Gary says they're happy with that. Yeah, I'm sure you are. I hope the Portsmouth. Of course you're happy with that. Brentford next. Brentford at home. Who have they got? 42. Who's 42? West Ham. Oh, Brentford against West Ham. Derby. That'll be interesting.
A bit of a derby, that, isn't it?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That one. Who's number 1? Bournemouth. Bournemouth. Of course, yeah, Bournemouth. And who are they playing now at home? Bournemouth are playing number 10. Burnley. Bournemouth against Burnley. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Replaced each other in the Premier League, didn't they, this season?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
13. That'd be Premier League team, wouldn't it? No, it's Coventry.
No, it's Coventry.
Coventry at home. Who have Coventry got? 46. Wrexham. Coventry against Wrexham. Wrexham, of course, the Hollywood Stars that are
Deadpool.
28's next. Norwich City at home.
Yeah.
To 5. Who are 5? Blackburn Rovers. Blackburn.
Top of Championship.
Yeah, that'd be a good game, actually. That'd be a good game, I would thought. Number 3. Who's number 3? Aston Villa. Oh, that'll be a tricky one. Aston Villa. 55. Stevenage. Aston Villa against Stevenage. That's what you want, don't you? Aston Villa. You want a team like that at home, don't you? 22. Luton Town.
Right.
Oh, that'll be a tricky one as well. 43. Who's 43?
Wigan are flat.
Luton against Wigan. Oh my God, what a boring game that'll be. 59. Oxford United. Oh, I don't like the look of that. We've lost to them before. Oh, it's Arsenal. Oxford United away.
Oh, for you, is it? Oh,
Oxford United. They beat us once in the League Cup. I remember that. We've got a terrible record away.
Final.
I'm not happy
was
with
it the
that.
Final 86 or 87 or something? Oh.
That was a League Cup, Oxford. Yeah, they got to the final. Yeah. Fleetwood are playing QPR. So that's an interesting one. 21. Who's 21? Liverpool at home. You watch. Newcastle. You watch.
Probably will.
44. No, it's not. I don't know who 44 are. Wolves. Wolves. That's an interesting one, isn't it? All Premier League game again. 45. Who's 45? Grimsby Town. Oh, Grimsby Town. That's a tricky one. Who's got that? 62. Burton Albion. Down against Burton Albion. Wow. 6. Who's number 6? It'll be Premier League team. No, it's Blackpool. 29. We had Blackpool the other year. 29. Nottingham Forest. Blackpool against Nottingham Forest. Wow. That'll be an interesting game, actually.
Yeah.
58. Dagenham and Redbridge or Gillingham, my local team, Dagenham and Redbridge.
Yeah.
20, they're playing. Who's that against? Leicester.
Leicester.
That'll be a good one. Dagenham and Redbridge or Gillingham against Leicester. Wow. 51. Who's 51? Forest Green Rovers.
Yeah.
Oh. You watch Newcastle get them. I know them. 4. Birmingham City.
Ooh.
Wow. Who's next? Number 9. Bristol City. You don't want Bristol City away. That'd be a tricky one. 38. No, Swansea. Bristol City against Swansea. That's like a local derby almost, isn't it? They're not that far away from each other, are they?
Yeah.
54. Hartlepool United. It would be a derby if Newcastle get them.
Like a T. What was it? Like a T.
It's Stoke City anyway. Hartlepool against Stoke it is, so it's not going to be a derby. 18. Who's 18 at home? Hull City. Hull City, are they playing? Hull City are playing number 16. Fulham.
Fulham.
That'll be a tricky one for Fulham. Hull City away. 14. Crystal Palace.
The Palace, yeah.
Crystal Palace at home to 35, who are Southampton. Oh, another all Premier League. There's a few all Premier League games, isn't there?
Yeah.
26. Millwall.
Millwall
Away. Yeah, no one wants Millwall away.
No.
34. Sheffield United.
Ooh.
Sheffield United v Millwall. That's going to be a tricky one, isn't it? 53. Shrewsbury Town. Who are they playing? 37. Sunderland. Shrewsbury against Sunderland. There you go.
Ooh.
That's a good one, isn't it? 60. Sheffield Wednesday. There's not many teams left now. Newcastle are going to be coming out soon.
Yeah.
20. There it is. Sheffield Wednesday away.
Sheffield Wednesday away. Oh, that's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. It is a tricky one, yeah, but could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse. Man United are next out. They're at home. Who have Man United got? There's not many. It's going to be an easy draw pretty much for them, you'd imagine. Oh, 15. The only Premier League team left. Everton. Against Man United against Everton. Wow, another all Premier League game. Incredible draw this. There's no more Premier League teams left now, so it's going to be a few more of the smaller clubs. Reading are at home. There's only 3 left. Rotherham, Watford or Ipswich. Which one is it? Number 40, Watford. Reading against Watford. All championship game. And then the other 2, it's just Rotherham and Ipswich. Who's at home? Ipswich are at home, and it should be Rotherham, the last team out from the championship as well. Yeah, it is Ipswich against Rotherham. Wow. So Arsenal away at Oxford, Newcastle away at Sheffield Wednesday. So tricky games actually for both of us. Tottenham got a nice easy one, didn't they? Home to Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Man City v Chelsea. Man City v Chelsea. That's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, that'll probably be for the telly, that one.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I think they might. I wouldn't be surprised if the Arsenal Oxford game might be on telly as well, because they love a shock, don't they, on the telly? They like an upset, potential for a shock, don't they, as well? Yeah. Or maybe Newcastle away at Sheffield Wednesday. That's a potential for a shock as well, isn't it?
Potential. Hereford 1972 all over again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, the pitch will be a bit better this time, though, won't it? I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I say there's a few all Premier League games, isn't there? Man City against Chelsea. There was
Wolves,
a few other,
Wolves, Liverpool.
Yeah, Liverpool, Wolves. Yeah, there's a few. So Man United, Everton as well. Brentford, West Ham.
Yeah,
another one. It's quite an interesting draw, that actually. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah. It was
Oxford United away for Arsenal. That's a strange one. We have got a terrible. I don't think we've ever won away at Oxford ever. I know we haven't played them that many times. No, I don't think so. Because their spell when they were in the first division, we always lost there or drew. We never won there then. And then they knocked us out of the League Cup one year, which was the year. You're right. That was the year they got to the final. They knocked us out on the way.
Yeah, when they had people like was it Trevor Hebard? Yes,
Trevor Hebard. They had. I think John Aldridge may have been playing for Oxford then. Actually,
yes,
he may have been.
Phil Bardsley was Phil Bardsley? There was a Bardsley there. I'm sure there was.
There might have been. I don't think it was Phil Bardsley. He was a bit more recent, wasn't he?
No.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think did they not play Luton in that final? Because Luton had won it the year before or something. Because I remember
Luton. Yeah, they played Luton and they QPR they played in the final.
QPR, that was when Dave Seaman was in goal.
Yeah, because QPR beat Liverpool in the semi-final.
That's right. Yes. I do recall that now. Dave Seaman was in goal, and if my memory serves me correctly, did Michael Robinson not turn out for QPR? The Republic of Ireland.
I think he might well have done. Yeah.
Former Brighton and Liverpool striker, and then he come back.
Yeah, I think he might have done. But it was Oxford, the only trophy they've ever won. But we've never beaten them Oxford away, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they gave us a tricky run as well. I remember, I don't know if it was the FA Cup or I think it was on the TV as well. They took us to a replay, so a pretty handy side.
Yeah, they are. They'd be a tricky game that for Arsenal actually, but
Yeah,
anyway, you can't change the draw. It's what it is. We'll have to deal with it
it is
now.
what it is.
We'll
Exactly.
have to try and get on and win it hopefully, but we'll see. But yeah, there's some interesting games there actually. I'll say a few all Premier League ties, which are always interesting.
Yeah.
Some of the big boys are going out, aren't they? Chelsea, Man City, one of them's going out very early.
Yeah.
Man United, Everton, one of them's going out early. Liverpool, Wolves, one of them's going out early. So
exactly.
it's gonna be interesting actually. Looking forward to that now. But yeah, so that's the FA Cup third round draw. When the women's draw happens a bit later on, we'll come back and maybe look at that as well to see how that works out.
Because Newcastle through the next round of that as well.
Yeah, I was at that game yesterday actually. The Barnsley game. It was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, my mother was. My mum went as well with a friend there. She was in a Lisa stand. Were you there in the Lisa stand as well?
No, we were in the East Stand.
East Stand, yeah. It was. My mother said she wanted to go and watch it, so I said, "All right, I'll get you." So I toodled on down because obviously with the postal strikes, picked up a couple of tickets for her and her mate, and I said, "There you go." And she enjoyed it. She really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was good. Big crowd as well. So record-breaking crowd.
Oh yeah.
Up outside of the final. So it was good. I enjoyed it as well. It was good stuff, and it's good to see so many people there supporting the women's team.
I was supporting the women's team, and really, what people should take on board is right because I remember I started watching ladies football got a bit more interested in from 2015 because that season I thought was a load of shite personally, load of rubbish. And I quite enjoyed it. The Lionesses when they got the bronze in the World Cup in 2015, and that when you look back, that World Cup bronze medal kick-started girls football teams up and down the country. I remember at the club I was involved with, and when Farrah Williams comes on, I always remember I said, you got that winning penalty in the bronze medal final.
That's
remember it.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, that was a good World Cup, and the amount of people that I've spoken to that it was from that World Cup that they started watching women's football. Actually, after that World Cup, that made a big impact, that particular one, didn't it? And I think the same's going to happen with the Euros that we just had. A lot more people have got into it since then, haven't they? Which is great. Let's hope that it continues, really.
I watched WSL games as well because I'd tell my sons, I said if there was 11 elephants against 11 elephants playing football, I'd watch that too. But I wouldn't be much fun like. But what really pleases me about the game is how composed they are on the ball and playing the ball to feet. You don't get the ball in the air; you get the ball moved around. Nice passing triangles, movements, and they utilize the width, which obviously England didn't do on Friday, but that's in that story. But they utilize the width, and you don't get a boring 0-0. It's entertainment, so happy days.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's good stuff. Right, well, that's the FA Cup draw then. So Newcastle away at Sheffield Wednesday, Arsenal away at Oxford, and a few big ties elsewhere as well to look forward to in January. So that's that. So what we will do now then is what we were mainly here for anyway. We are going to start on the fantastic World Cup memories coming up the other side of this. So today we are up to 1986. Of course, Mexico were the host of that World Cup. They wasn't the original host, actually. It was Colombia were supposed to be the host, but because they had a few financial problems in their country at the time, they couldn't host the tournament. They couldn't get the stadiums in place. So Mexico stepped in. They became the first nation to host 2 World Cups because, of course, they did host 1970. Since then, that's happened. Since then, France and etc. So, So anyway, in 1986, we need to look at a few things that were going on in the world in 1986. One of the top movies of 1986 was this one. I'm sure you remember that.
Aye, Top Gun. Yeah,
Top Gun, indeed, fantastic film that was. Of course, the recent of course, released the second one, didn't they? Like last year, I think it was. Another big film from 1986 was this one.
Oh, is that Stand By Me, Annie?
Stand By Me. That's right. That was a good film, wasn't it? It got a lot of awards, I think, at the time. It was pretty good. And one of the other top films, one of my favourites, actually, I love this film.
Crocodile Dundee. That's not a knife.
That's not right, exactly. One of the most famous scenes, from that film. Brilliant film that is as well. So that was out in 86 as well. So quite a good year for movies, actually, because there was a whole list. There was about 25 really good films that were out in 86. Colour of Money is another one. There was loads. In terms of music, and this was the best-selling single of the year, Don't Leave Me This Way by the Communards, which was number one. A couple of other big songs from the year was this one, Boris Gardner. That was a good song, wasn't it? I Want to Wake Up With You. Bit of reggae, chilled out reggae going on. And also an unusual kind of collaboration was that song. Do you remember that one? It's Aerosmith and Run DMC with Walk This Way, of course, which was one of the first collaborations between sort of rock and hip hop, which was a great song, actually. We've lost Daniel. I think his signal's gone. I wonder why he's gone quiet. Let's see if we can get him back. Let's hopefully he can jump back in. I think his signal must have gone because he did go quiet. Actually, I didn't know if he didn't know what that song was or whether or not he'd gone quiet on us. Anyway, let's hope he can come back very shortly, and we can carry on with the rest of it. We got a few more bits to get through actually because there was quite a lot happened in 1986, which was quite a good year. I don't know how many of you guys remember 1986? I turned 18 that year, so it was quite a big year for me. And so a lot of good memories that I have from that particular year, not just the World Cup, but elsewhere as well. So we'll see if we can get Daniel back because he seems to have lost himself actually. I don't know if it's his signal that's dropped out. So we'll hang on. We'll hang on 2 seconds. We won't go through the rest of it yet. In terms of the World Cup, though, the '86 World Cup, I say it was in Mexico. They were not the first choice to host it. It was Colombia, I said, and in the end, it went to Mexico. They stepped in. They had the infrastructure in place already, having hosted one previously in 1970, of course, which many people say was the best ever World Cup, 1970. But I was too young to really remember it. I've seen obviously clips of it and highlights of it and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a good World Cup, and the '86 one was another really good World Cup. It was the second time in a row that had 24 teams qualified for the World Cup. Now, what that meant was in the previous World Cup, if you remember, we spoke about that last week. It was a second group stage of 3 teams in each group, which was a really strange kind of way of doing it. So in '86, they went back to the old format of a knockout from the group stage onwards. But because they had 24 teams, obviously you need to have 16 to go through to make a quarter final. 8 to go through to make a quarter final. So you had the top 2 in each group went through, but because there were 6 groups, you then needed to get another 4 teams through. So what they did was it was the best third place teams in the group went through, which was a really, really strange way of doing it at the time. So there was actually 4 of the third place teams in the group actually did go through to the knockout stage as well, which had never previously happened before. So, even teams that looked as though they may have been on their way out after the first game or second game still had a chance to sneak through by being one of the best third place teams. Oh, we've got Daniel back now. Let's hope his signal's back. Oh, you're back. Did you lost your signal there, did you?
Yeah, I put in the wrong socket. I had a bit of it, but never mind. Technology.
You're back with us. That's the main thing. I say we got up to the music actually. So we had the best-selling single was "Don't Leave Me This Way" by the Communards.
Oh yeah.
We had Boris Gardner, "I Want to Wake Up With You," which was a nice little chilled out song, wasn't it? And this rather unusual collaboration as well. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah, Run DMC and Aerosmith. Yeah. Walk this way. Yeah.
Walk This Way. Yeah, it's a great song.
Guitar riffs, absolutely
brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, one of the iconic moments in music actually, because it changed the whole face of hip hop, didn't it? And became joining up with rock and stuff like that. So
I think it was the first example of 2 the musical styles fusing together, and it fused together
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah, it was, and it was brilliant as well, wasn't it? So that was an
Yeah.
iconic kind of moment in music. In TV, then these were some shows that were big on TV. Do you remember this one?
Oh, LA Law, yeah.
LA Law, indeed. That was a great show, wasn't it? LA Law. I used to love that. That
Yeah.
was brilliant. This was one of my favourite ever TV shows.
Oh, Moonlighting,
Moonlight.
Die Hard, Bruce Willis.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, indeed. Yeah, that was a great show. I used to really love that. And also as well, this was on TV as well, more of a British show. Do you remember that one?
Oh, Bread. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Bread.
That was brilliant, wasn't it? That was so funny. That was really well written.
It was. Where's the pudding and all that?
Yeah, it was brilliant. That was a brilliant show. So they were some of the TV shows. Now, there was a few big events going on in the world in 1986. This was probably the biggest one of the lot. Do you remember that?
Oh, that was Chernobyl, wasn't it?
Chernobyl, yeah, it was indeed.
The
nuclear thing, yeah. So that was Chernobyl. Do you remember this as well? This happened in 1986.
Oh, the space shuttle Challenger, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, the space shuttle Challenger exploded. Yeah, exploded. It did. That was another big event in the news in '86, and also there was this. Do you remember that?
Oh, was that the club? I can't remember that one.
It was mad cow disease.
Mad cow. Was that then? Was it? Oh, right.
Yeah. Mad cow disease, yeah. That was in 1986, apparently. So there you go. So that was that. They were some of the things going on in the world at the time in 1986. There was loads of other stuff as well, but they were three of the ones that kind of stood out. And obviously, the World Cup was the big thing in Mexico. I was just saying before, there was 24 teams in the tournament, which was the second World Cup in a row that had 24 teams. And you remember last week when it was there was that sort of second group stage of 3 teams in the group, wasn't there, to knock the teams out? Well, this time they didn't do that. They went straight to a knockout, but because they had to get the number of teams down to 16, it was actually some third place teams went through in the group, which was the first time they'd ever done that, didn't they? Do you remember that? That was which made the group stage almost a waste of time. You played all them group games and you only knocked out 6 teams or something like that, which was crazy. But anyway, that was how they did it. And there was a bit like 1982. There were 3 British teams in the finals. Of course, there was our team, that nice little squad there, who we'll talk about them, did pretty well. You had, of course, as usual, you had Scotland.
Yeah.
And as usual, they didn't do particularly well. And for the second World Cup in a row, Northern Ireland qualified as well.
Yeah.
And so it was the same 3 British teams as last time, all made it again for a second World Cup in a row. England, Scotland and Northern Ireland with sort of different, I suppose, they did a different kind of tournament, really. And of course, the one thing about the World Cup in '86 was it was the birthplace of the Mexican wave, of course, which now still happens at football stadiums now, doesn't it? So that was when it first became a thing from the Mexico World Cup, which is why it's called the Mexican wave, obviously. So that was sort of the build up to it. Now, in the group stage, Northern Ireland had a very, very tough group, actually. They were, hang on, let me just check. They were drawn against Brazil. They were in Brazil's group, wasn't they?
Yeah.
They were in Brazil's group and Spain's group, actually, Northern Ireland. So they had a really, really tough group, didn't they? And in the end, obviously, they went out, not surprisingly. And the game against Brazil, actually, when Northern Ireland played Brazil in the last game, that was Pat Jennings' final game his final game. And they lost that game and went out, obviously.
Was he about 42 or something when he was in the 40 or 42?
Yeah, he was in his 40s, definitely. Yeah. Because he played well over 1,000 matches, didn't he, in his career?
Yeah.
Because I remember his 1,000th game was Arsenal against West Brom in 1983 of his career. It was a 0-0 draw. And obviously he went on to play another 3 years to the '86 World Cup. So he added a few more on after that as well. I mean, he wasn't a regular in the Arsenal team, but in fact, I don't think he played for Arsenal at all that season before that World Cup, which was surprising that he went to the World Cup. But anyway, he did. And that was his final, the end of his career. But yeah, tough group for Northern Ireland. And Scotland were in a group with Denmark and Germany in, actually. So they never got an easy group either.
And Uruguay as well. I think Uruguay were in that.
No, it was it was Uruguay. Yes, you're right. It was Uruguay. Do you remember what was significant about the Scotland-Uruguay game, the last game in their group?
Yeah, it was Scotland had was it Scotland had to beat Uruguay or something to progress, basically, didn't they?
They did. They had to win
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
they'd lost the first two games to
yeah,
Germany
yeah. That,
and Denmark.
yeah, and it was from just what I meant. It wasn't one of the standout games. It was quite a dirty game. Uruguay were quite,
Yeah.
quite
Well,
vicious.
they were, and actually, what happened in that game was, and it's a record that still stands today. It was actually the fastest ever red card in a World Cup game for a Uruguay player called Batista, and he was sent off inside the first minute of the game for a challenge on Gordon Strachan.
Oh, Gordon Strachan.
And that remains the fastest ever red card at a World Cup, and that was in that game. And you're right, Uruguay just basically decided just to kick lumps out of Scotland because they only needed a draw to go through, and that's what they did. And once again, for the third or fourth World Cup in a row, Scotland went out of the group stage by a very narrow margin. I think if they'd won that game against Uruguay, they would have qualified as one of the best third place teams, but they got the 0-0 draw. And Uruguay qualified instead, which was a shame. But so that was sort of Northern Ireland and Scotland both had a difficult group and didn't get through. Whereas England had on paper, didn't they, an easier looking group. It was Portugal, Morocco and Poland, wasn't it, in their group? Now, I can remember before going into that World Cup, England wasn't particularly fancy to do that well because we hadn't been doing particularly well. We hadn't qualified for the 84 Euros. We were not playing particularly well. Obviously, Bobby Robson was the manager, wasn't he, at that time?
Yeah.
And he didn't seem to be able to, to be able to gel the team together. It didn't seem, did it, at that particular? I remember going into that World Cup thinking, well, England aren't going to do anything really. We're just not going to be able to go very far in it at all. I wasn't particularly optimistic beforehand. Were you, for England's chances?
I wasn't. I'll be honest with you. I thought, But when, when he added likes of Lineker and Beardsley, I thought maybe because Lineker was a typical typical goal poacher, and Beardsley, your original number 10. They all talk about these number 10s and all that. The original number 10. And I rest my case. People say that the original number 10.
Was he still at Newcastle then, Peter Beardsley, in '86?
Peter Beardsley was still at Newcastle then. Yeah, he didn't get transferred to Liverpool until the following season. I think.
That's right, '87, wasn't it? He left 86 because it was John Barnes as well, wasn't it? He went to Liverpool in '87 as well, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you see, so England. I seem to remember. The first game we played Portugal, and I seem to remember it was at a right stupid time of the day. Was it in the middle of the night or something?
It was. It was basically when we were I think it was when we were pushing out the Zeds, basically.
Yeah, because I seem to remember I didn't watch that game. I think I had to go to work the next day or whatever it was, and I didn't watch the game. And I remember the next morning finding out that we'd lost 1-0. Thinking, oh well, there we go. We're going home early. But I didn't actually watch that game. I did watch the second game. That was against Morocco, wasn't it? Do you remember that game, the Morocco game? Because that was quite an interesting game, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah, because what's his face got sent off, didn't he? Butch Wilkins got sent.
He did. For throwing the ball at the referee, wasn't it? Or did he throw the ball at one of the players? I can't remember. He threw the ball at someone.
Basically, it was enough for him to get a red and say, right, away you go. Yeah.
He did. And also, of course, Brian Robson, who was, the player that we all had our hopes on, got injured in that game, didn't he, as well? And he was out the rest of the tournament.
That's it.
And it was as a result of those two players being missing. Obviously, Wilkins had a red card, so he was suspended. And then, obviously, Robson being injured, that actually led to Bobby Robson having to make changes to the team. And that's when he brought Peter Beardsley in, didn't he, for the third game against Poland, where we had to win to have any chance of going through. And that suddenly, I always looked at that it was by accident, really, wasn't it? That because I think if Wilkins hadn't been sent off and if Robson hadn't got injured, he would have played the same team against Poland, and we might have gone out because we may not. Because Poland, we mentioned Poland last week, that they always seem to do well in tournaments, didn't they? They always seem to get through to semi-finals and stuff, didn't they? Yeah. Quite regularly at that time. So they were a decent team, and I think we might have gone out, if those incidents hadn't happened in the Morocco game. And I remember thinking, we drew near Morocco, and I'm thinking, that's it. This World Cup's done. You know, we're going now. We haven't scored a goal. It was looking, terrible, wasn't it? And then suddenly that Poland game was another one. That was played at stupid time in the day as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but I remember staying up and watching that one because of how important it was to go through.
Yeah.
And of course, Lineker got that hat trick, didn't he, Gary Lineker, which basically kick-started his whole career, didn't it? That hat trick against Poland, I think.
That was the making of Gary Lineker's England career.
Yeah, I think his whole career, his football career, actually, at the top level.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Basically, that is what brought him to world prominence, world recognition. That's what got him recognised. I thought, we've got something.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and of course, that was one of the goals. I think that might have been his hat trick goal against Poland.
Yeah.
That sent us through. I believe that game was what made Gary Lineker become the sort of player that he was. Well, not so much the player he was, but like you said, put him on the world stage, and suddenly everybody was talking about Gary Lineker, wasn't they? And then I think that summer he moved to Everton, didn't he, for big money? Or was that the season before? I can't remember now. And then he went
before Barcelona. Did he not go to Barcelona?
He went to Barcelona. That was because there was a game, wasn't it? I think it was the following year when he scored 4 goals against Spain, didn't he, for England?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and then he went to Barcelona after that, didn't he? Because they thought, we better buy him. So he went over to there, didn't he, for a while? But that Poland game was, for me, that was the game where he really, because up until then he hadn't really scored that many goals for England, had he? He'd been in and out of the team. He wasn't a regular, but of course, as you mentioned, it was Peter Beardsley that was the difference in that game, really, wasn't he? Peter Beardsley's performance in that game was what had been missing in our games previously, wasn't it? I mean, you must have been delighted as a Newcastle fan to see Peter Beardsley performing like he did in that particular game, and for the rest of the World Cup after that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Peter Beardsley, I would obviously not quite world renowned as say Lineker, but he showed what a football talent he is in terms of a natural football talent. And as luck would have it, I've been lucky enough to meet him twice. So
wow.
I met him once, just to digress a bit. Once when he was a reserve team coach, I took the kids with us and got a photo with him. And then just before the Bournemouth game this season, he was at the food bank, and I got a photo with him there as well. He signed me program as well, so I got a signed program off him as well. So it's great. I mean, he's a phenomenal footballer. Definitely up there as one of the all-time greats in a black and white shirt. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh no, he was a fantastic footballer. There's no doubt about that. He was one of the stars of this World Cup for England, wasn't he? He was one of the. I mean, Lineker ended up getting all the plaudits because he scored all the goals.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't have got half of those goals if it wasn't for Peter Beardsley in particular, would he? So he was really pivotal. And then we won that game 3-0 against Poland, and we got through. I think we actually won the group despite all our problems in the end, winning that game 3-0
4 points,
to go through. So it looks a bit of a struggle, but then suddenly it all fell into place. And then I say the second round back then was a straight knockout, which was much better than the group stage at the previous 2 World Cups, wasn't it? It was better to have a knockout, an actual proper knockout, and we got some exciting games, didn't we, in that knockout stage that season, in that World Cup. Sorry, the first game was Belgium, wasn't it, against the Soviet Union, I think it was, and it was 4-3. The Soviet Union were much fancied actually to do pretty well in that World Cup. They had a really good side. And Belanov scored a hat-trick, but they still lost 4-3.
Belanov,
after extra time. That was probably the first the really exciting knockout game that was. And then the holders Italy, who had won the previous World Cup, as we said last week, they played France in the next round, and France won 2-0. Of course, France were the European champions at the time. Very, very good side. Platini, Tigana, these players we spoke about last week. And they knocked Italy out 2-0 to go through to the quarterfinals. And there was Spain. They thrashed Denmark 5-1.
Yeah, Denmark were a good side. I remember that
They
was
were a good side, yes.
yeah.
And they would obviously they won the
LKR,
Euros a few years later, didn't they?
yeah, LKR without qualifying as well. But obviously that's a different
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah, they
obviously
did. Yeah,
they had Laudrup, Michael Laudrup, LKR, and
yeah,
was it? Would they've had who else would have had? Probably Jasper Olsen would have been on that side who played
yeah.
at United. I don't know if Jan Mulby was in the middle of the park as well. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure.
he probably would have been because he would have been playing at that stage, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
Anyway, they got hammered by Spain 5-1, and it was Butch Regaino scored 4 goals in that game
the
for Spain.
Vulture. Yeah, the
Do you
Vulture who
remember him?
played
He was a good player, wasn't he?
Real Madrid, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think he also might have been like a few years later, uh, like sporting director and stuff as well. There, I think he was involved quite a bit with the club afterwards as well.
yeah, I think he was. Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah.
I think he was. And anyway, he scored 4 goals in that game, which was a pretty good effort. Now Argentina, obviously they got through as well. I can't remember who they played actually. I think Maradona probably scored a few goals because he tended to score a lot of goals in
Yeah,
that World Cup, didn't he?
yeah.
Let me just check who they played. Who did they beat in the?
Because obviously that was around before they played us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was around before. Yeah. Let me check. Actually, I can't remember who they played. You know. Let's have a look. They beat Uruguay. They beat Uruguay 1-0.
Right, Uruguay.
It was Uruguay, yeah. They beat Uruguay 1-0. That was what put them through. Brazil beat Poland 4-0, actually. So, you know, we'd beat Poland 3-0 and thought we'd done well, and then Brazil went and beat them 4-0. So that sent them through. And Mexico beat Bulgaria.
Yes,
2-0 to go through.
I do remember that game. I think, was it one of the scorers for Mexico was Negrete, I think.
Negrete, that's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Negrete, yeah.
Because I remember watching that. We were in our caravan watching it on the portable. I remember that.
Yeah.
I think that was the first game of that round, of that sort of.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been the first one. Yeah.
It wasn't a bad goal from as memory.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah, yeah, and the final game, West Germany beat Morocco 1-0, and that was a goal in the last minute from Lothar Matthäus. Got the winning goal in the last minute to knock out Morocco. So, and of course England, we beat Paraguay, didn't we? 3-0.
Yeah.
And Peter Beardsley scored in that game, actually, didn't he?
Yes, he got. I think, was it Lineker 2, Beardsley 1 or something like that?
Yeah, and I think Beardsley set up both of Lineker's goals and then scored one himself. So he had a great game in that as well, didn't he, Peter Beardsley? And yeah, I mean, I think we would have expected to have beaten. I think that was at a stupid time of day as well, wasn't it? From what I remember.
I sort of remember watching that. I think it was an okay time of day. It wasn't too
Yeah, I remember watching it, but I seem to remember it was.
I don't think it was that bad. I don't think it was like midnight and like, or as I would call it, stupid o'clock. But I think it. I don't know if it was. It was during. I think it was during the week as well. And it was.
Yeah, it was during the week. Yeah,
time-ish or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that game, and that was a good England performance actually. And suddenly we'd gone from, after them first 2 games, thinking, oh, England are going home, we're never going to do anything, to suddenly, you know, the Poland game and the Paraguay game, suddenly thinking, you know what, we could actually win this World Cup.
Yeah. I think that's how it got. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we spoke about Italy last week when, you know, they sort of struggled through the group stage, hadn't won a game, and then they got better and better as the tournament went on and got to the final and won it. And I remember thinking back in '86, as this was happening to England, thinking we could do what Italy did last time. You know, we could be rubbish in the group and then get better and better and then go all the way through to the final. And I really felt that, I believe that we could do that actually. Yeah. But then, of course, we got to the quarterfinals, and of course, there was some famous games in the quarterfinal. Now, funnily enough, in the quarterfinals, out of the 4 games, 3 of them went to penalties. 3 out of the 4. Of course, there was only one that didn't go to penalties, which we know about, which we'll speak about a little bit more.
Yes.
But there were some good games actually. France against Brazil. Sorry, I remember that one. I remember watching that. And that was a really, really good game, wasn't it? Because obviously Brazil, being Brazil, fantastic team they still were then, and France, I say European champions, they were a really good team. And that game would have been a good final, actually, wouldn't it? France against Brazil.
I agree with you there. That would have been like a showpiece final, that, and I think say it had been in a final, Zico would have established himself as one of the icons of Brazilian football, because I think in that game, if my memory serves me rightly, Zico set somebody up with a back heel. I'm sure he came on, because I think he came on in that game and he set somebody up.
Yeah, I think he might have done, actually. I think he might have missed a penalty as well,
I think, yes, he did. I'm sure he did, yeah.
I think he missed a penalty. So anyway, that game went to penalties. It finished 1-1 and France actually won 4-3. And that was, I mean, last week we mentioned the Germany against France game, which was the first ever penalty shootout at a World Cup. This one was the second ever penalty shootout at a World Cup. And again, it involved France, but this time they lost the previous one, but they won this one. They won 4-3 to knock out Brazil, which was a bit of a shock, I suppose, at the time. But France were a very good side anyway, so it wasn't like a massive shock. So that one went to penalties, and the second quarter final, it was who was that? It was Belgium, wasn't it? Belgium. No, Bulgaria. Sorry.
Bulgaria would have got through, because
it was Bulgaria against Belgium. It was. And that finished 1-1 as well, and that went to penalties. And Belgium came out on top in that one. So Belgium reached the semi-final. France had reached the semi-final. And of course, the third quarter-final was the one that we had all the interest in. Of course, Argentina, Diego Maradona, and England. Of course, this was the first time I think we'd met Argentina since the Falklands War. I think it's the first time we'd played them at football, certainly since the Falklands War. And
in a competitive match,
I remember there was a lot in the news at the time in the build-up to it about the Falklands War and all that kind of stuff, England against Argentina. And of course, at that time, in this World Cup, Diego Maradona was at his peak, wasn't he? I mean, what an amazing player he was. I mean, I know, we know what he did in this particular game, which we'll talk about, but as a footballer, he was incredible, wasn't he, Diego? Especially at this point in time, he was at his peak, wasn't
he? Yeah, he was a natural. I mean, basically, if Beethoven was born to compose music, Maradona was born to play football. I mean, there was nothing he could not do. He literally, when he went on the pitch, he owned it. He owned the football, and such quick feet, obviously strong as well, and nobody could touch him. Literally, he single-handedly, took Argentina to the pinnacle in that tournament. Because
he did.
You take him out of that team, Argentina looked very ordinary.
No, they were. I didn't think Argentina were a great team at all. But what they had was they had the best. I mean, I believe he's the best player to ever play football that I've seen. Maybe prior to him, there may have been better players that I didn't see. But certainly players that I've seen, I think he's the best. I think he's the best player I've ever seen. And what I have to say was, yes, we know what happened with the second goal. No, the second goal, wasn't it? No, the first goal. That was the first goal. The first goal. I mean, obviously, this image here is probably, I think, it is probably the most famous image in world football history. I think it is.
It is. Yeah.
I think it's been showed the most times. I think it's the most famous image. I think anybody anywhere in the world, whether they like football or not, would know about that image, would know what it represented, would know what it stood for, and would probably even say the hand of God, because I think everybody in the world who's ever lived knows what that is. It's that famous.
Exactly. And I remember I was at school during that time, and everybody said, cheat bastard, this and that, cheat. But as you say, it's since then it's gone on to become one of the most iconic images in in world football.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It has, yeah. I mean, I think it's the most famous image that there is in football. I think it's the only image that every single person ever that was even people that wasn't alive in '86 wasn't around will still know what that means because it's
What
been.
that means, yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone knows what it means now. Yes, I mean, I know at the time everybody said he was a cheat and this, that, and the other. Right now, I know it might. I don't know. I don't necessarily see it like that. Basically, the referee and the linesman saw that. The linesman definitely saw that. There's no doubt in my mind. He saw it,
absolutely. Yeah.
and they allowed that goal to stand. So they were the cheats, not Diego Maradona.
No.
And let's face it, Peter Shilton should have got that ball anyway because Maradona's what 5'7". Yeah, 5'7", isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He should have just come out and got that ball because it's never a foul, is it? When a goalie comes out and gets the ball like that, it's not going to be a foul.
Well, I remember because I used to help out the goalkeeping coach in the football club I was on, and what he used to say was, "Go take it, and if you clean the bloke out as well, fair enough, but just make sure, you're in there."
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's what you should have done, Peter Shilton. So for me, the biggest culprits in that whole goal were the referee and the linesman mainly, and Peter Shilton, who should have just got that ball or done something to it. You can't allow a 5'6" player. Yes, okay, he jumped and used his hand, so he gained an extra few inches. But even so, Peter Shilton should have got that ball, and he was at fault for that goal, I think, as well.
I mean, just another travesty of being outjumped by a smaller player. If you sort of fast forward to the 2009 Champions League final when Messi outjumped Rio Ferdinand, there you go. That shouldn't be allowed to happen.
No, but at least he headed the ball. At least he headed the ball that time.
True. But there again, Rio Ferdinand obviously that bit taller, but Messi should not outjump somebody the size of Rio Ferdinand.
No, exactly.
And likewise, the same applies here. The same applies here as well.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I watched it on telly as I'm sure most people did, and even at first glance, you knew he'd handballed it, and how the referee and the linesman didn't disallow that goal, I still don't know. Something definitely dodgy went on in that game. Definitely something dodgy happened because there's no way that goal should have been allowed to stand. So I don't necessarily blame Diego Maradona. He did what anybody would try and do, and that's gain an advantage for your team. And if you get away with it, that's not your fault. The laws of the game are in place. The referee and the linesman are there to stop those things from happening and to say, no, that's not a goal, it's a free kick, and that's what should have happened. So you can't blame Diego Maradona for the fact that the referee and the linesman, for whatever reason, didn't give that as handball, even though everybody saw it was handball quite clearly from the first. You didn't even need a replay to see; it was obvious. How can Maradona at 5'6" head that ball past Peter Shilton? How can he outjump him?
How can he exactly? Yeah,
it was impossible. The laws of science wouldn't
gravity.
You know what I mean? So, I've never really blamed Diego Maradona for that, and I know the whole of England seemed to, and he was public enemy number one. And he didn't help himself when he came out afterwards and made that famous quote about the hand of God, or he said it was a little bit of hand of Maradona and partly the hand of God, didn't he? He said something like that, which again is one of the most famous football quotes, isn't it? Now, everybody remembers that quote as well. So, but I don't really blame Maradona necessarily. Yes, he shouldn't have done it because you shouldn't try and cheat like that, but. No. The goal should have been disallowed.
But it's, as I say, in cricket you've got the umpire, in football you've got the referee. They're there to make sure the laws of the game are upheld.
Exactly. So that they were much more to blame for that goal than Maradona, and Peter Shilton was to blame for not dealing with it.
It's it's really for that goal. It's a collective responsibility, isn't it? For that goal, when you put it all together, it's not just Shilton, it's the officials as well. So everybody takes a collective responsibility as for that goal happening. But everybody blamed
Maradona, didn't they? I suppose.
Yeah. As football fans, you're going to be up in arms over it. But at the end of the day, when you look back, you think, well, referee and the linesman didn't do their jobs properly. So,
And I suppose it's interesting to think as well about, obviously, now with VAR, and you're seeing some of the goals that get disallowed. There was a goal disallowed earlier on this evening, wasn't there, in the Brazil game for a very marginal offside. And obviously, if VAR had been in place in 1986, that goal wouldn't have stood.
Oh,
And
wouldn't have stood. No.
who knows where that game may have finished?
Yeah.
Because you're right. What you said, Argentina, that Argentina side, they were a decent team, but it wasn't a great team, were they? And we were playing well at the time. We were confident. We had a good system that was working. And I thought on that particular day, we actually played pretty well. England did. And
they did. They controlled the ball pretty well, and we had some good. I think was John Barnes on the wing, and in the middle of the park, I'm sure Glenn Hoddle played, and there was good balance in the centre and midfield because you had Steve Hodge, the little terrier who, and you had Glenn Hoddle, who one of the best passers of the ball ever.
Yeah.
And how he never got more England caps, I'll never know.
No, I don't know either. He was a great player, right? And yeah, I mean, obviously after that dodgy goal, he then scored again, probably one of the most famous goals ever scored in the history of football, I think. And what amazed me about, and even when I watch it back now, when you see replays of it and stuff like that, that pitch, it was bobbly, wasn't it? Everybody said it was. How he managed to dribble that ball and keep it under control on that pitch, with it bobbling around like it was just incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no other player, I don't think, who's ever played football would have scored that goal apart from him. And that's why, to me, he's the greatest player I've ever seen. Because on those pitches that he had to play in them days, it wasn't like the pitches now. Imagine what Maradona at his peak would be like on the pitches now, flat pitches with no bobbles. No one would be able to get near him. He wouldn't be able to touch him.
On the modern pitches now, Rich, I think he'd be absolutely devastating. Never mind, he'd make what you call Cristiano Ronaldo look like Ronnie Corbett with a football.
Yes, he would. He would.
Because his close control of the football, Maradona's, was just on another level.
Yeah,
there wasn't anybody at that time. When we look at that time, forget about that. Comparing now, but when you look at that time, there was nobody who had the ball mastery which he had.
It wasn't. I mean, I recently saw a documentary on Maradona, and a lot of it was focused on his time in Italy because he played for Napoli, didn't he?
Napoli, yeah.
And you saw a lot of clips of the games that obviously we wouldn't have seen at the time because they didn't show Italian football at that time over here. One, the state of the pitches, obviously, which you mentioned before, but also the fact that every time he played, literally every player on the other team would just kick him. That's all they would try and do: kick him and kick him and kick him. And in them days, football's not like now. There wasn't free kicks and free kicks. They got away with it. And
they did,
he just, he seemed to bounce off the challenges. They'd kick him and he'd bounce off them. He'd keep his balance and he would dribble past 12 of them and score goals. And it was like, what an incredible footballer he was. I say these days, with the referees protecting players the way that they do, with pitches the way that they are, Maradona would have been unbelievable. Everyone says how great, I'm not saying Messi's not a great player because he is. Ronaldo, as you mentioned, is a great player as well. But none of them would have been able to live with Maradona if he played now with the conditions that we've got now.
Absolutely not.
In relation to that. And, if anybody out there watching this, if you've never seen that goal, the second goal Maradona scored in that game against England in 86, just look at, don't so much look at his dribbling with the ball, which is fantastic. Look at the pitch. Look how bobbling the ball is. The ball's bobbling around all over the place, but yet he's got it under control the whole time. And he goes past literally every single England player. And wasn't there one of them? I don't know, was that Steve Hodge who could have fouled him and didn't at the very beginning of the run? And he was interviewed afterwards and said, I wish I'd fouled him now.
Yeah. Peter Reid was in that.
It was Peter Reid. It was Peter Reid. Yeah, you're right. It was Peter Reid.
Yeah. Peter Reid, and you see him as the goal moves on. You see Peter Reid just jogging, and he's getting
he knows he's touching him.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I think it was Peter Reid that said he had the opportunity to maybe foul him right early on in that run, and he didn't. And he didn't because it was Maradona. He didn't foul him, and then obviously he said, "I wish I'd have done now because he wouldn't have been able to score that goal." But he didn't, and then after that, it was just. Absolutely, it was a genius at work. There's no doubt about that. That is, for me, that's the greatest goal that's ever been scored because just the state of that pitch.
It wasn't the best pitch. Yeah.
When you slow it down and you watch it on the replay, you can see the ball as it hits the floor. It's just bobbling all over the place, and yet he's got it under. I don't know how he managed to control it as he did. It was just the most incredible bit of skill I've ever seen, and I know it came straight after the really, really dodgy goal, and that overshadowed everything else about that game. But I think that second goal needs to be given a lot more respect and a lot more credit, because it was just absolutely unbelievable. I don't think I've seen a better bit of skill, a better goal ever, when you put everything into account. You know, the pitch.
I have to agree. I mean, that was probably, I think, both of a similar age. That was the first time we'd seen a player do that, what he did. Basically go through the defence like a knife through butter. That was probably the first time I will, from just going off my memory, that I saw a player do that. I mean, we've seen loads since.
Yeah. But you have, but I don't think you've ever seen it on a pitch like that.
Not on a pitch like that. No, absolutely not.
I mean, I can remember at the time we was in the pub. I think that game must have been at a more decent time, because I remember we watched it in a pub. I think it was afternoon. I think it was in the afternoon or Sunday afternoon or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Sunday. Yeah, I remember.
We were in the pub watching it. And I remember when that goal went in. You know, just in the pub, you got to your feet, and it was like, oh my god, wow, that is just amazing. And it was against England, so you was obviously gutted. It was 2-0 to Argentina, but it was like that goal it just took your breath away. It was like that was just absolutely incredible. But then after that, I mean, John Barnes actually came on as a sub in that game when it was 2-0. And suddenly, you know, we look. I mean, that second goal in, you thought, that's it, we're out. We're never going to come back from 2-0 down against Argentina. But John Barnes came on, and what John Barnes did in that game was just incredible. He was just running at the fullback, wasn't he? Ran it in, crosses in, and obviously Lineker scored, didn't he, to make it 2-1 with a header. That was a decent goal. That a really good cross again from John Barnes from that left-hand side.
Pinpoint on it. It was pinpoint.
Yeah, and Lineker, he doesn't miss very often, does he? From inside the 6-yard box like that, he just doesn't miss them.
Not from that distance, no.
No. And it was 2-1, and suddenly you're thinking, hang on a minute, must have been 10 minutes to go, whatever it was. There was still plenty of time. And Argentina looked as though they had run out of steam a little bit, and you know, and we were all over him. I remember being all over him in that last 10 minutes. John Barnes was causing havoc, and then there was that really big chance, wasn't there, right near the end, when again it was Barnes again with a cross, wasn't it? And it looked like I thought Lineker had scored. I mean, everybody thought Lineker had scored when he dived that header in, and from nowhere that defender, I think it was Goycochea, wasn't it? He got across, didn't he? And somehow he got a little touch on that ball and just took it away from Lineker as he was about to score, wasn't he? Made it 2-2. That would have been, I mean, that was incredible. That was one of the best bits of defending ever, again, wasn't it? That you've ever seen. Because I mean, it looked like, you know, again, like we said, Lineker doesn't miss them. When that ball come across, it was Lineker's anything, and that's it. It's 2-2. I think in the pub we're already celebrating the goal. And suddenly we're looking, oh, it's not gone in. What happened? And then you see the replay, and you see that defender come across and get the slightest touch on it. Is all it needed, just to take it away from Lineker. And it was like, well, I remember Lineker saying a few times, hasn't he, that, you know, at the time he saw the ball coming across. He knew he'd scored, and he was almost celebrating himself. And then he said he doesn't know where the defender came from. He just didn't even see him. And suddenly he just got a little nick on it. And that was that, really. And we were out. But that was, I know that I say that game's been completely overshadowed by the handball goal, but that was an incredible England performance, I thought, actually, to come back into that game. And we should have took it to extra time. And at that time, you'd have to say, if it went to extra time, I think we would have won, wouldn't we? Because Argentina were dead on their feet.
Yeah, I definitely, because I think we would have knocked a bit of a stuffing out of Argentina if we'd had taken it extra time. But as I say, it's just like, one thing to remember about tournament football is when your name's on that cup, everything goes for you. Yeah,
it does. It does.
And obviously, thing,
no, you're right.
Little things go your way, and you know, and there's nothing, no matter how well you've played as the opponent, but when it's not your time, it's not your year or whatever, nothing goes.
No, you're absolutely right. And obviously that was Argentina's year, wasn't it? And that game probably summed it up. And that's, like you said, you know, to win any tournament, you do need certain things to happen in your favour. And obviously in that particular game, several things went in their favour, didn't it, to swung that game for them. And I still believe to this day, and I will stand by that, if England had won that game, we would have won that World Cup. because in the semi-final, we'd have had to play Belgium. I think we'd have beat that Belgium team. And in the final, yes, Germany, England in the final would have been tricky, but I think we could have beat that Germany team because it wasn't a fantastic West Germany team then, was it? They were all right, but they wasn't the best Germany team ever.
They were they had, you know, a handful of decent players, but that was the beginning of the Germany team we got used to. They were just building.
Yeah.
Towards what we know they became in like the 90s. I mean, I'm trying. You know, it would have been obviously they had Rummenigge was coming to the end of his sort of life cycle, but you had Lothar Matthäus was on the up.
Yeah.
And would Bremer have been in that team?
Yeah, I think Bremer was still in it. Yeah. I think he scored in the final, didn't he, or the semi-final?
Yeah, he scored, and I think there might have been odd couple from the '82 squad as well, like Hansi Muller and people like that. And I think, and obviously you had Schumacher as well in goal.
He was a good goalkeeper, even though he nearly killed that French guy in the previous World Cup. But yes, I don't believe that was a brilliant Germany team actually, and I believe, and I will never, nothing will ever convince me otherwise, that if we had beaten Argentina in that game, we would have won the World Cup in '86. Yeah. And I really believe that we would have done. 20 years after we won it the first time, we'd have won it again. I'm 100% convinced that we would have done, but it wasn't meant to be. Like you said, you know, when it's your time, it's your time, and these things happen. And in that particular game, it didn't, did it? That defender appeared from nowhere. Lineker didn't score. We got knocked out, and that was the end of that. And it's another nearly miss for England. It ended up being, didn't it? And there'll be another one to come, obviously, in the next World Cup in 1990 as well. But yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult England defeats to take because of the nature of the first goal, and also because of how unfortunate we were. We should have won that game. You know, we should have done, shouldn't we? The way that we played and everything about it, but. You know, we come up against the greatest player ever, and he just he was the difference again, wasn't he? And the last quarter final was Germany against the host Mexico, and again that one went to penalties, as all the other three did as well. That finished 0-0 actually, and then Germany won 4-1 on penalties. But of course, Germany always win on penalties, so you knew they were going to win us. But
need we be reminding on that one?
Exactly. So having, you know, there'd only ever been one previous penalty shootout at a World Cup before, and then there was 3 of the 4 quarterfinals in this World Cup were all decided on penalties. So this was when I think that the penalty shootout started to become a regular occurrence in World Cups after that, because we'd never really seen them before, and suddenly they started to appear on a regular basis. Although neither of the 2 semi-finals or the final went to penalties in that World Cup. All 3 of the quarterfinals did. So the semi-finals, then we were out. We were losing interest a little bit by that point, I suppose. But for the second World Cup run in, Germany played France in the semi-final. It wasn't quite as dramatic, this one, as the previous World Cup one had been. And Germany won comfortably 2-0, a bit of a nothing game, really. Do you remember much about that semi-final? I don't even think I watched it, I don't think I did.
I know what's his face obviously kept the clean sheet, had a decent game, Schumacher. And that's it. I can't remember who scored. I wonder I'm trying to think who scored now.
Actually, I don't know who scored. I don't think I even watched that game. I think I was still so upset about the quarter-final defeat. I almost lost interest in the World Cup after that. I did watch the other semi-final, but I'm pretty sure I didn't watch that one. Who scored for Germany? It was Bremer and Voller.
Oh, Rudi Voller.
Rudi Voller, yeah. He must have been his first World Cup, I would have thought, Voller, because he obviously he was quite good in 1990, wasn't he?
Yeah, because he was like the up and coming centre forward then.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. And it was an early goal. Bremer scored after 9 minutes and Voller scored after 89. So it was an early goal and a late goal to seal it for Germany. Lacking the drama of the previous one when it went to that penalty shootout, as we said before. And of course, the other semi-final, which should have been us, it was Argentina played Belgium instead of us playing Belgium. And it was, again, 2 goals from Maradona. So we got 2 goals in the quarterfinal and 2 goals in the semi-final. And both of those 2 goals, from what I remember, were pretty good as well. There was one of them, I thought, he cut in and curled it into the far corner, didn't he? In that semi-final. I remember watching that game. And again, he was just, it was basically Maradona. It wasn't Argentina that won that World Cup. It was Maradona. He won it almost on his own at times. He was incredible. And I remember watching that game thinking, wow, this guy is just absolutely amazing. What a player he is. And he got them 2 goals and they got through to the final. So it was Argentina again in another final. And they were facing obviously West Germany in the final. Now, the final obviously is the World Cup final, no matter who's in it. No matter what the circumstances, you watch it, don't you? Everybody watches it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's the biggest game in world football, isn't it?
Yeah, and everybody watches it. And this particular final was actually a really good game as well, wasn't it? It was one of the better World Cup finals. It was a good game of football. 2 teams that tried to win it, going for it, created lots of chances, and it was a really, really good game, wasn't it? Do you remember much about it?
Yeah, I remember. Obviously, what's his face? Rummenigge got a goal because he hadn't done much early on. He got a goal, and then when it was poised at 2-2, Maradona had a run on, and he laid it off for Burushaga to score.
That's right.
Yeah, to score the win, the winning goal. So although he didn't score in the final, Maradona, he made the telling assist to seal it. So
he did.
That's how Maradona stamped his mark on the World Cup, on the World Cup final. Should I say?
Yeah, I mean, he'd obviously stamped his himself on the World Cup previously in the previous games, but in the final, Argentina actually 2-0 up at one point, and then Germany scored twice, as they had done in that semi-final against France at the last World Cup. There were 2 goals behind. It was Rummenigge and Voller that got the 2 goals. 2 goals in 6 minutes made it 2-2. And then you thought, oh, maybe Germany, Germany being Germany, might have come back and won because they've done that. They've done that plenty of times before. But in the end, like you said, it was that brilliant part. Like Maradona picks up the ball. I think he ghosted past someone, didn't he, in the middle of the pitch, as he liked to do, that low centre of gravity that he had. And then he put the ball through, and it was Burruchaga who got the winning goal. And Argentina won the 3-2. Of course, Maradona was the captain. Another iconic picture from that World Cup. Maradona, being lifted up with the trophy, which he had basically won on his own, essentially. Didn't he?
He basically that was. I mean, looking back at World Cup since that, he that was the one occasion where one player stood out compared to the team, whereas World Cup since it's been there's been individual, but it's been the collective. But in that case, it was he made that difference for them.
Yeah. Oh, he did. I mean, I've always looked at that. To me, that was Maradona's World Cup, 100%. It was his World Cup from start to finish. He dominated that World Cup. He obviously got player of the tournament. He didn't get the golden boot though, because of course Gary Lineker did.
Gary Lineker got the golden boot. Yeah.
Lineker got 6 goals. Maradona only got 5. He needed to score in the final to take the golden boot off Lineker, but he didn't.
Boot. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he was on 5. Yeah.
So Lineker got the golden boot.
Yeah, I mean, it was some good memories from that World Cup. I mean, I remember in one of the early group games. They played, might have been Argentina played, I think might have been South Korea or North. It was one of the Koreas, and Korea scored against them, managed to nick a consolation, but they were like absolutely going mental thinking.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah. I think that might have been their first ever goal at a World Cup or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it was
Actually,
absolutely.
I do remember that. I remember that. What was the score in that game? Because obviously Argentina would have won.
Three might have been 3-1 or something. Because 2 or 3-1.
Let's have a look. Actually, see if I can find the score of that game. Let's have a look. Argentina. It was South Korea. Yeah, it was 3-1. Yeah, it was 3-1.
Bloody hell! I tell you what. That's not bad for
that's a good memory. That actually, I remember that game. I remember them getting that goal and celebrating. Yeah, I couldn't remember the score, but it was 3-1. Yeah,
they had it. Player South Korea had a striker who was like 30 odd then, called Char, who played for one of the German teams. Called
Did
Char,
he?
Yeah, Char Bum Kyun, I think he was called. Yeah, that was it. And
Wow.
But it wasn't he who scored. It was one of the others who scored. I can't remember what his name. But,
Hang on, I'll tell you who scored. Let's have a look. I'll get the. It was Park Chang-sun who scored.
Park Chan-sung.
And that was, yeah, they were 3-0 down, and they scored a goal near the end. Yeah, to make it. I do remember that, actually. They did go mad, didn't they?
Yeah. It was, that was there.
And it was, yeah.
And the other memory from that World Cup for me was when Brazil were playing in the earlier rounds, and on ITV they showed the Brazilian commentary, and when Socrates was scoring, and they kept going, goal!
Oh, yeah.
That was just brilliant. You know?
Yeah, that was the first World Cup, I think, where they did that. Where we heard about that, didn't we?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, those were the overriding there. But yeah, happy memories. Well, I'm not so happy memories from that World Cup, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very good World Cup. Actually, I thought it was an enjoyable World Cup with a lot of great football and stuff like that. But yeah, ultimately England sort of failed again to progress too far into the competition. Although I still feel that was probably. I know we'll speak about 1990 next time when we went further than we did in this one, but. For me, this was our chance to win a World Cup. It really was, because I think I'm 100% convinced we'd have beat Belgium, because I didn't think that Belgium team were great. You know, they were all right, but I think we would have beat them. And I would have had a great chance in that final as well. With the way we were playing at that time, with Beardsley on top of his game, Lineker scoring goals for fun, John Barnes going past fullbacks, putting crosses in, and like you said, that midfield had good balance, didn't it? Hoddle and Hodge and Peter Reid. We had good, and we had a decent defence as well, didn't we? I know Peter Shilton was a bit iffy, wasn't he? He was getting on a bit at that point as well, but we had a decent enough defence as well, didn't we? I think Terry Butcher was still playing, wasn't he?
Yeah, Terry Butcher. Then you had, would have been Gary Stevens on one of the fullbacks.
Yeah, Gary Stevens. In fact, I think it was Stephen and Stevens, wasn't it? Because Trevor Stephen was playing.
Both Everton fullbacks, weren't they?
Yeah.
Trevor Stephen obviously being another Geordie. So
yeah, he was. Yeah. So that was a really good England team that I thought. And I know maybe it was only those earlier instances with Wilkins and Robson that made Bobby Robson change it a little bit, and it all fell into place. But yeah, I believe that's one of our best ever World Cup teams. That actually, and
it
was such a shame that game didn't go our way, because I think we would have won the World Cup. And maybe Maradona's legacy wouldn't have been quite the same, would it? If he hadn't won a World Cup like that, the way that he did, his legacy would have been tarnished a bit more, wouldn't it? He wouldn't have had that same impact on football that he had, I don't think, because everyone always used to say Maradona won the World Cup, on his own. And if he hadn't done that, if we had won that game, then who knows where Maradona how his career might have ended up. How people would look at Maradona now. They look at him totally differently, I think, to what they do. I mean, he was a fantastic player and he deserved to get the recognition that he does. But would that have happened had they not won that World Cup? Because, that was like you said, they wasn't a great team, Argentina, really. I thought the Argentina team from 78 that won that World Cup was much better than this one that won this World Cup, I think. But they didn't have Maradona, and this team did, and that's why they won it. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that World Cup. I mean, I was 18 that year during that World Cup, so it was quite a big year for me personally, anyway. And I kind of just, when you're 18 and that life's sort of different, isn't it? I suppose, and I just remember really enjoying that World Cup, even though the kickoff times were stupid o'clock sometimes. But it was a good World Cup. It was, that's just a shame England couldn't have won it, really. But yeah, it was good to see, such a great player as Maradona, really seeing him for all the way through the tour, able to watch him play live on the telly and stuff like that, which, in them days, we didn't get the opportunity to do that much, did we? You don't get to see players like that very often. So, and he was at his peak, absolute peak then, wasn't he? I mean, well.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was, yeah.
So that was the 86 World Cup in Mexico, which was a good World Cup. And it was Argentina again that won it. So the second time out of 3 World Cups, Argentina come out on top. And I say they beat Germany in the final, and a good final it was. So, yeah, another frustration for England, as we've got used to over the years, haven't we? Being England fans, we get used to those frustrations at big tournaments, don't we? World Cups and stuff like that. And this was just another one, really. But yeah, I think there's not many World Cups that have had so many iconic moments as this World Cup did. I don't think.
Yeah, no, no, definitely not. No, definitely not.
It's probably one of the most famous World Cups, just for, you've obviously got, there was World Cups in the past where maybe Pelé, the 70 World Cup, a lot of iconic moments in the 1970s, which was in Mexico as well, funnily enough. There seems to be a lot of iconic moments in that World Cup, wasn't there? And this one as well. And they seem to be the two that really seem to, I don't know, maybe it's something about Mexico, maybe it's the air in Mexico and stuff, the altitude and stuff, I don't know. But it just seems as though those two World Cups have produced some fantastic moments. Probably some of the most iconic moments ever in World Cup history. So, and it was a great World Cup. And then, of course, after 1986, the next one was, of course, Italia 90, which was, I think a lot of people, even now, would say that Italia 90 is their favourite World Cup. I don't think it's mine. I mean, we'll do that next time more. But I mean, would you? Is that your favourite World Cup, Italia 90? Because I know a lot of people I've spoken to have said, "Oh yeah, well, Italia 90 is my favourite World Cup," but I don't think it wasn't mine. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favourite.
I say I did enjoy it, yeah, but I have to say 1982 for me, I was my favourite because it was my first, and two, I got to see football played in a different way.
Yeah,
compared to the normal Division 1 stuff, which we were used to at the time. But
82 was a great one. Yeah, it was.
1990 was a little bit of a letdown in some respects, but
in terms of the football, it was the style of football and the games was quite negative, wasn't it? A lot of red cards,
very, there was more cards than Grosvenor Casino in that. But,
it was, especially in the final. But yeah, I mean, we'll look at that one next time in a bit more detail, because obviously England had a good World Cup that year, didn't they? And a certain Geordie boy did pretty well, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he did all right.
Well, the second World Cup in a row, because obviously Peter Beardsley had a big impact in '86, and then of course in '90 it was another Geordie boy that kind of took all the headlines, didn't he, with the fantastic World Cup that he had. So, but yeah, we'll look at that one next time. But yeah, I mean, obviously '86 was I enjoyed '86 World Cup. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And yeah, for all Maradona's faults and for all his cheating and whatever you want to say it, but to me, I think he's the greatest player ever. I still believe that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Kevin's in the chat. His 82 was a real World Cup. Yeah, 82 was. I don't know if you saw the show we did last week on that, Kevin, on 82. Definitely check that out, because we looked at that one last week and that was really good. Some great memories from 82. But yeah, 86 was good. I enjoyed 86 World Cup. Again, maybe I think a lot of it's maybe timing as well, isn't it? I say I was 18 that year, so maybe it sticks in my mind a bit more, because my birthday's in the summer as well, in the middle of the World Cup. So a lot of memories around being 18 in the World Cup and stuff. So yeah, it's a important World Cup for me. But I thought it was a good World Cup anyway. I thought it was some good football, good games, and obviously some, I'll say, iconic moments that we'll always remember forever, won't we? Images and stuff like that. So that was 86, and that was good fun. I say next week we will be doing 1990, Italia 90, and there's a load of people want to come on and do that one, actually, because everyone remembers it. So it's going to be good. That'll be a good show. We'll do that. I'll try and fit that in at some point next week. Don't forget, tomorrow, of course, it is the current World Cup. England are actually playing in the current World Cup tomorrow against Wales. What are your thoughts on that then? Do you think England will play better than we did on Friday? We can't play much worse.
I mean, as the song goes, things can only get better. so hopefully they can get better. We need to be positive. We need to again, use our wit, draw the fouls from the opposition defense, and then we can have an impact. Don't try and play through the middle, because they'll just we'll get nullified in the middle. Use our wit, and let's see what happens.
I mean, do you think it maybe plays into our favour a little bit that it's Wales that we're playing? First of all, because obviously we know the Welsh players pretty well. All our team will know the Welsh players, most of them, and they'll know us as well. But the fact that Wales have to win, they have to win. A draw's no good to Wales. They have to win the game. Do you think that maybe plays into hands a little bit? Because the longer the game goes on, they're going to have to take more risks. They're going to have to put players forward. They're going to have to get the ball in the box, and it could leave spaces for us. Or do you think that maybe we might have been better off in our last game needing a result playing against, one of the other teams? I don't know, really. I can't decide whether it's good that we're playing Wales or not, really.
It's a banana skin. That's all I'll say.
Oh, it is, definitely.
It's their cup final, tomorrow. It's for Wales. It's their cup final. At Derby, it's a cup final. It's it's bragging rights. England v Wales, always. But as I say, let's see what happens at the end of the final whistle tomorrow. So, we can but guess, we can but wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we're in the better position in the fact that a draw is all we need, and even on a bad day, you would imagine we've got to be good enough to get a draw against Wales, surely. I mean, even in the Euros when we played and we were terrible that tournament, we managed to beat them, didn't we? I know it was in the last minute, but we did beat them, didn't we? In that,
we did. Yeah,
I think they were better then than they are now, and I think we were probably worse than we are now. So looking at that basis, we should win. But having saw us play on, what did you make of that America game on Friday? Because I couldn't understand.
Absolute rubbish.
I couldn't understand what our sort of tactics were, what we were trying to do, because everything was at 5 miles an hour. We were just walking about, passing the ball sideways and backwards, no urgency. And it's like, if we'd won that game, we would have been through. We wouldn't have to worry about Wales. It's almost like they didn't want to win. I couldn't understand it. It made no sense.
It was a case of they didn't want to get beaten a bit more than they didn't want to win. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what their mentality is, but only they know. We can only guess,
Well, yeah. I mean, just looking at the way that game went, I was baffled as to what the plan was. Surely you've got to go out to try and beat America to get through and qualify after 2 games. You've got to do it, haven't you? We didn't even look like we wanted to win that game. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I'm sure tomorrow will be a totally different game. It'll be more like an English sort of Premier League game in a way. I know a lot of the Wales players play in the Championship and stuff, but I think it'll be much more of an English type game, won't it? It will be. It'll be 100 mile an hour. It'll be tackles flying in. It'll be that sort of game, won't it? I think. And it's just going to be, hopefully the quality that we've got, which we've got a lot more quality than Wales, let's be honest, is going to be enough. But if Bale turns up, if Aaron Ramsey turns up, who knows? It could be a difficult game. But we would have to lose by a few goals, wouldn't we, to go out, I think?
Yeah, we'd have to get thrashed, basically.
Which isn't going to happen, let's be honest. Wales aren't that good, are they? So, but yeah, I mean, hopefully it'll be a better game than Friday anyway. So I'll be doing a watch along of that game tomorrow. So join me for that if you can. I'll go live about 7:15, 7 o'clock kickoff. So we'll enjoy that game, I'm sure. Wednesday, Melvin's back for Highbury Matter. So if you do like nostalgia, we've had a bit of nostalgia tonight with the old World Cup '86. Melvin's doing Highbury Matters on Wednesday with. He's an author called John Sperling. He's wrote a lot of books about Arsenal and history and stuff like that. Really, really good. A good author, some great books. He's going to have some great memories. They're doing 78 to 1980, actually, looking back to stuff at Highbury and Arsenal. So that's going to be a really good show, actually. So definitely join Melvin for that 8 o'clock. And then on Thursday, Adam and Steve are back with the Social Extra, looking at all the social media stuff over the last week or so. No doubt they'll be talking about the World Cup and stuff that's going on over in Qatar as well. And maybe have a look at some of how the Arsenal players are doing. They may even talk about the FA Cup draw. Of course, Arsenal played Oxford away as well. So all that's coming up this week. And of course, next Saturday coming up, the Arsenal women are back in WSL action playing Everton. So we'll be doing a watch along of that game. I've got the Andreas and a couple of guys are actually at the ground. We're doing a preview show from the stadium. They're going to be in the stadium coming on the channels. That's going to be good. So definitely join us for that on Saturday. And then obviously the game is at 2 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. So join us for that. It's going to be good. And next week we will be back with 1990, Italia 90, Pavarotti and all that kind of stuff, and Chris Waddle and all that going on. So it's going to be good. So definitely join us for that one. That may well be Monday next week, actually. Again, I may well do that Monday because Monday seem to work best, but we'll see. It depends on the World Cup, actually, doesn't it? I don't know if England are playing on Monday. Maybe if we get through, I'm not sure.
Monday, it'll be, I don't know. I think it's Saturday or Sunday when they play.
Is it? I'm not sure when the round is actually. But anyway, we'll work it out. If England are playing, we're not going to do it when England are playing because we will watch England, even though I'm not watching much else of the World Cup. We'll sort it out as well. I'll say Italia 90 next, which is going to be good. So join us for that. Thank you very much to Daniel again for joining us. Have you enjoyed the show?
Yeah, I loved it, mate. Loved it. It's a pleasure being on. I really enjoy podcasts. You know, I mean, I've been on others during lockdown and stuff, and coming on with you, totally different perspective. Absolutely brilliant, mate. Fab.
Well, it's great to have you on. You know, you've got some great memories as well, which is great. It's what it's all about. It's what we like to hear. And so hopefully we'll speak next week. Do Italian night. That'd be good. So hopefully we'll see you then. Thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to give us a like before you go and subscribe to the channel. We will see you tomorrow for England Wales, which is going to be hopefully a little bit more exciting than Friday. I'm sure it will. And in the meantime, we'll see you later on. Come on, you guys.
Yeah.
See you later. Take it easy. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.